Welcome to HCA Talks Health, brought to you by Health Coaches Academy, the UK's leading health coach training academy. I'm your host, Zena Le Roux, a certified health coach, and each fortnight I'm joined by experts from across the health and well-being space to share insights, ideas, and practical tips you can use to improve your health and everyday well-being. On the show today, we have Helen Roome, a South African occupational therapist with almost 30 years of diverse clinical experience, who over the past decade has gained recognition in the local and international pain community for her expertise in pain care and particularly with fibromyalgia. So she established a thriving fibromyalgia education support group 10 years ago, and she's recently co-founded Fibro Hub, which is an online community for women living with fibromyalgia that offers educational resources and support groups. It really is lovely to have you, Helen. A warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Zena. It's so lovely to be with you and our listeners, and I'm really enjoying getting to know and understand the role of health coaches through that recent presentation I did for the Academy and today through working with you and having this conversation.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for being here. And it's a very important topic. And I think, yes, also the
Mm,
role of the health coach and how we can work together to support our clients in the best way possible. I'm
mm.
firstly interested in why you are interested in this topic, and it came about that you care about this topic so much.
Yes. Yeah. So the way I got into firstly chronic pain management as a whole and then involved with fibromyalgia as sort of a special interest area for me is a lot more personal than much of the rest of my career as a healthcare professional. Firstly, my own mother has trigeminal neuralgia, which she's had for many years now, a really difficult and yeah, a really difficult chronic pain condition. But when it comes to fibromyalgia, about 10 years ago, I had about three of my close friends all become diagnosed with fibromyalgia at about the same time.
Wow.
And, prior to that, I had worked with people with fibromyalgia in my practice. In the sort of late 90s, I would see people. But it just seemed that at this point in time that I had these close friends who were all diagnosed, and I think it got me asking some questions. It got me asking,
What's happening?
why am I seeing fibromyalgia more and more? Um, and so that got me started and starting a support group. I obviously felt quite a lot of compassion for these friends of mine and for the others who gathered around us. But I think also as a professional, just realizing that compassion would only take me so far,
Mm.
that compassion is absolutely essential, but I needed some competence. And so that's when I really began sort of more postgraduate studies in chronic pain management and just followed through on this fibromyalgia journey.
Wow. Okay. So you were seeing it, especially with your close friends, and realized that, there need to be more answers around this. It can't be, you were really curious about trying to figure out, but what's really happening? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What was,
Especially because Zena, sorry, especially because I was obviously getting firsthand information from them about what they were experiencing when they tried to get help,
mm,
seeking out specialists and so on, and not really receiving the help they needed.
mm.
And so sort of just asking why and why they were having as much trouble with fibromyalgia as they were with getting help for fibromyalgia.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, I remember, why I also have a family member with a pain disorder and him
Mm,
going to a doctor and the doctor just saying, we're just going to have to manage the symptoms. There's nothing we can do about that. And those words for me were like, can't be. I am
yeah,
going to do my
yeah.
research. There needs to be something that people can do. What is it that you found? What can people do? Are there things that people can do to manage it in a better way?
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I think we'll get into that in some more detail later. But I think it really starts with understanding fibromyalgia properly.
Mm, mm,
You know, there are so many misconceptions about fibromyalgia, and I think on the very top of the list of misconceptions is this idea that um, people living with fibromyalgia are just really, really stressed people
mm,
who are now making up symptoms in their head to show how stressed they are.
mm,
So very often people with fibromyalgia get this kind of it's all in your head message, you know, from practitioners and from their family and friends.
mm,
And so if practitioners are not even acknowledging that fibromyalgia is a very real condition, that these symptoms exist,
mm,
how can they offer help? What are they going to do about it? You
mm,
know? So
mm,
I think top of the heap for me is this issue of thinking that people are imagining their symptoms. But then some of the other misconceptions of fibromyalgia also end up taking people down roads of help that are not going to be helpful.
mm,
And I would say almost on the other end of the spectrum of misconceptions from this one of, oh, you're just imagining it because you're just a super stressed person,
mm,
would be this belief that fibromyalgia is a disease that causes permanent damage
mm,
to your joints, your muscles, and so on. And so that can also lead people down a road of seeking, you know, pills, procedures, um, misdirected help.
mm,
And then somewhere in the middle, we've got a whole group of misconceptions about, you know, the causes. So we'll have there's still a lot of I think practitioners out there who believe that fibromyalgia is mostly an autoimmune condition.
mm,
And there's some debate around that whole subject still. And so treating it as an autoimmune condition, treating it as this widespread inflammatory condition, when in fact it's not. You know, it's more to do with changes, and we'll get into that, I'm sure. But the last thing I want to say that I think throws people off when it comes to getting the right kind of help is I think many people with fibromyalgia are told, like you said, in a sense, oh, there's nothing we can do about it.
mm,
You've just got to live with it.
mm,
And maybe worse than that, you know, this is progressive. It's just going to get worse and worse and
mm,
worse,
mm,
and you need to just accept that and so on. And so I just want to quickly say that actually, fibromyalgia in itself is not a progressive condition,
mm,
but the way people kind of progress in a sense, or what gets worse and worse, is when you have someone who hasn't received the right kind of help,
mm,
or does not have those tools and strategies and the right approaches. And so, what is getting worse is the consequences of, for example, not moving enough, not eating well. You
yeah.
know, so I'm just starting with those misconceptions because I think they very much lead us in either the wrong or the right direction with the kind of help people need.
Absolutely. So we first need to understand what it is to get the proper support and help. But thinking about, of course, firstly, we need to acknowledge that it's real. It's not something that is made up. But it's also, as you said, it's not a disease, and it's especially not a progressive disease in the sense of, it's going to get worse. And that often leads to misdirected help. But if it's not all of those things, what is it?
Yes, I guess that's the number one question. Hey, you know, what is fibromyalgia? So our current understanding, where we're at now with fibromyalgia, and we will have more to learn, but we have learned a lot more than we used to know. Our current understanding of fibromyalgia is that it's a syndrome. So that means that it's a collection of symptoms that when they all sort of occur around the same time, we can sort of tick them off and say, okay, this looks like fibromyalgia.
Mm,
But those symptoms, and as you know, and our listeners know, fibromyalgia, people with fibromyalgia sometimes list, 60 or more symptoms. So there can be many, many different symptoms someone is struggling with.
Mm,
What we think is going on is those symptoms are not coming from damage in the body, as I said, not coming from mostly inflammatory changes, but from multiple systems in the body of that person that have become sensitized or aroused or just really alert, okay, because of some kind of threat to that person, whether that was a physical thing to start with, so it might have been an injury originally, or an infection or an illness, or whether it is a more psychological threat.
mm,
We'll talk about trauma later, but stress and other things. And those systems are doing what they are meant to do. They are responding. But the issue here is that, the key system we're talking about is the central nervous system. The issue here is that these systems are doing what they're made to do, so respond to protect you, but they're getting stuck there. And
mm,
they are now over alert and over responding to absolutely everything going on.
mm,
And so we get this kind of array of symptoms, all sorts of things, not just the pain, but the fatigue, the sleep issues, the headaches, the sensory sensitivity, many, many different things.
mm. So it's sensitized, it's aroused, it's over alert because there is some threat. And if we
Mm.
don't address the threat, I guess, the body won't be able to relax and calm down. What are, not really.
Well, let me just say that for many people with fibromyalgia, the threat is in the distant past.
Okay.
Okay,
Mm,
and it may have been an event that sort of took place to start this response of these systems, but we can't change the past, can we? So we can't change the event. But I think what you're getting at here is that we can create the kind of context and the kind of safety that the body and brain of that person needs now for those systems to start to uh, reverse that sensitization.
mm,
So that we know that these systems are plastic, that they've changed to become sensitized and responsive in the way that they are, but they can also be targeted in a way that brings those back down.
mm.
So I think we're talking about how do we create safety now that those systems will respond to.
Yes. Okay, gotcha. So it's about addressing the threat, even though it's in the past, it might be through helping the body feel safe again and realize that it is in the past. It's actually not a current threat. So maybe working through it in some way. But what are some of the other threats? What are some of the other threats? Like,
Yeah,
yes, okay, it might be something in the past, but what else? You've mentioned it could be an
yeah,
injury or
yeah. Yeah, so I think what makes fibromyalgia complex is that almost anything that happens in someone's life that is perceived as threatening and dangerous to them as a whole person
mm,
can uh, bring on the development of these symptoms, bring on fibromyalgia. So yes, it could be that this person from childhood already um, has had some traumatic events. So we do talk about adverse childhood experiences, so traumatic events before the age of 18. And the more someone has of those, the more likely they are to develop some of the chronic conditions we see, including fibromyalgia. So it could be something that even through childhood has been developing. The sensitization grows, but it also stays stuck over that time. So could be over many, many years. I said that it could also be so psychological and physical. So some of the common things we see in the background of someone with fibromyalgia. Firstly, let me say that there's some vulnerability factors.
Mm.
Um, there is some genetic aspect here. If your mother or someone in your family had fibromyalgia, that increases your vulnerability.
Mm.
But other things like hypermobility syndromes, sensory sensitivity as just part of your nervous system wiring from the start. So we've got some of that.
Mm.
But then, as I say, we've got these events that can happen over time. I've mentioned more traumatic experiences. It could just be the cumulative effect of chronic stress. But I also want to mention, as I said, some of the things that we see commonly in the background of someone with fibromyalgia would be certain viral infections are associated. So, Epstein-Barr virus, uh, Lyme disease in the United States, less common in other parts of the world. So, we see some viral infections that can have an association. I also want to bring up whiplash disorders.
Mm.
So sometimes when I'm talking with someone about their history, I'll say, "Have you ever been in a little like bumper bash with another car?
Mm.
They hit you from behind and you had a bit of whiplash. You didn't really think much of it."
Mm.
But whiplash is one of the associations with fibromyalgia.
Mm.
And then there are many other physical things. All of these, can basically be part of someone's story of developing fibromyalgia. And as I said, we have some common things we see, but people can have very unique um, histories that lead to this place of developing fibromyalgia.
But I guess that makes the treatment or effective treatment quite challenging if it's so varied.
It does, but not necessarily for the reason of those events that have led to this place. Um, So I think the complexity in helping someone manage fibromyalgia and treat fibromyalgia comes more from the multitude of factors, we call them contributors, going on in that person's life right now. Um, because this is not just physical, biological stuff,
Mm.
it is also psychological stuff. It is also their context and the kind of support they're getting from family and friends, things going on in the environment. It is also spiritual. So it's because of all the factors
Mm.
that we need to be aware of feeding into the fibromyalgia. I
Mm.
think that's where the complexity comes in.
Mm.
But I'm a bit of a half what's it a glass half full person
Yeah, good.
because I will say that the fact that there are so many factors is good news because it means there are many things we can target,
Yeah.
many things we can address to help the person. We're not just relying on this medication, because this pill isn't working well, now we've got nothing to do.
Yeah.
But the complexity of fibromyalgia is both what makes it challenging, but also what gives us hope
Mm.
because of the amount of targets and possible strategies that
Fantastic.
we have.
Yes, so instead of just one thing, and if it doesn't work, then there's no options. We've got all these different options to try to help to support someone.
Right, right.
So how can we do better? What are some of the
Mm,
approaches that you take to help people
mm,
to manage fibro?
yes. So I love to start with us as practitioners. I think we ourselves are almost the most powerful therapeutic tool, I'm going to say, in what we do with someone. And I'm going to say with someone, not to someone,
Yeah.
and not for someone, but with them. So,
Mm.
Zena, we were talking just now about this issue of people facing, I think, disbelief, invalidation.
Mm.
It's all in your head. You're making it up. You
Mm.
just need to manage your stress. So for me, I would say the very first and most important thing we can do here before we even get into what strategies to use is we need to believe the person when they say, I am in pain and these are my symptoms and this is how it's affecting my life.
Mm.
Believe and validate,
Yes.
those experiences. So it's not just, oh, I believe you, but it's, I can understand why
Mm.
this is so challenging. Validation is about saying it makes sense that you feel so, um, that you are in pain and that you feel hopeless and so on. And then being a safe person for that person. If we're saying that a lot of the symptoms of fibromyalgia come from someone um, under threat, uh, someone whose systems are responding to danger of some kind, then as practitioners, the first thing we need to do is be safe for that person,
Mm.
and create a safe space
Yeah.
for them.
Mm.
Yeah. So that would be for me the starting point in terms of um, not just diving into what do they need? What let's tick
Mm.
off a bunch of strategies and skills, and that is important. We do want to bring those approaches out. We are going to use some tools, but before that, the person sharing those tools needs to be a safe, validating person.
And I guess that's where you saying that, health coaching perhaps also comes in, where someone can
Right.
hold a safe space for their client in a non-judgmental way, validating what they are experiencing and doing it with someone,
Yes.
instead of,
Yes.
having some prescription in terms of what it should look like. I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, I love the whole coaching approach. Um, Coaching as a style of interaction can be used by any practitioner, and
Mm.
it's preferable to a directive, let me be the expert and tell you what to do, and you must just do it.
Yes.
I think coaching has that lovely, um, there's a sense of um, addressing the power dynamic and just, yeah, as you say, working with someone. And then I think health coaches, my understanding of health coaching, I guess similar to what we do as rehab professionals, OTs, physios, is we tend to have more time with people than maybe a doctor or a specialist.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and time is what it often takes, right, to make someone feel safe. They want to know you're giving them your full attention.
Yeah.
You have time to hear the story. You
Mm.
have time to sit with them.
Mm.
Um, and so I think, those of us who regularly spend an hour at a time with people with fibromyalgia, I think are creating safety just by giving the time as well as sort of how we approaching that interaction.
Absolutely. Yes. So you've talked about the adverse childhood experiences and how there is quite an interesting link for some between trauma,
Mm,
ACE score, and the pain conditions.
mm,
And I know there's a bit of a differentiation when you think about some of the management plans, which includes both a bottom-up and a top-down approach. So tell us what the difference is and what your
right.
thoughts are around it.
Yes, great. So we use the language of bottom up and top down just to mean so bottom up approaches are kind of the interventions we use that are directed at the body. They're directed at muscles and joints and bones and systems in the body, um, that are then ultimately still going to impact on the central nervous system and the person's, mental health and all of that. But they're kind of going from the body in, to address the symptoms.
Can you give us an example of
Whereas
what that is?
Oh, okay. Yes, yeah, sure. Okay, so bottom-up approaches would be things like certain medications.
Okay.
All right. Now, I say certain medications because some medications are top-down. They're addressing the
Mm.
central nervous system and brain. So some medications, like your anti-inflammatories, your muscle relaxants. Those are addressing the body in the hopes that the symptoms are going to go away and that the fibromyalgia will ease up and that there's going to be a ripple effect through to the brain and central nervous system. Some other examples of bottom up would be massage therapy, using TENS machines, so these sort of devices, surgery, procedures. So those are all kind of going straight for the body and then wanting the change overall.
Okay.
And there's a place for that. We'll talk about that. Top down, kind of go top down, is we're saying that we want to more directly target the brain and the central nervous system, because we've said that the central nervous system is one of the main systems in the body of someone with fibromyalgia, which is alert, aroused, over responding. Top down could also be some medications. So some of your antidepressants, some of your medications that work on the sensitization of the nervous system, and I won't name them. So those could be addressing that. However, we find that most medications prescribed for fibromyalgia are not effective for most people with fibromyalgia and not effective for a very long time for those that it is effective for. Other top-down approaches fit very much with your health coaching approach, the lifestyle-based approaches, but also just education. We can unpack these further, but someone just understanding accurately what fibromyalgia is and why they've got it is really, really helpful. It's like doing brain surgery with words. When we can unpack someone's experience, reassure them cognitively with accurate information. And then, of course, stress management, various techniques to actually target that central nervous system and regulate it. So we talk about bottom up and top down. What's important to say is that our approach to someone's going to have a mix of those. But with fibromyalgia, we very much lean into the top-down approches. Because we've said it already, if it's not about damage to muscles and joints, and if it's not about kind of inflammation in the body, it's more changes in the central nervous system and other systems, then that's what we want to target with the top-down approaches. So that's really where we lean into the top-down stuff.
Yeah. Have you ever wondered whether you could turn your interest in health and wellness into a meaningful career? At Health Coaches Academy, we train people just like you to become professional health and wellness coaches through our Level 5 diploma. It's a 12-month part-time course, fully accredited, and designed to give you the skills, confidence, and practical knowledge to help others transform their health while building a career you love. If this sounds like something you'd like to explore, visit healthcoachesacademy.com. Now, back to the show.
So again, if I want to say it more strongly, I would say that anyone with fibromyalgia who is only receiving weekly massages, medication, vitamin drips, all of these sort of things. I'm not saying they're wrong and not helpful. I'm saying if that's all the person is receiving, they are missing a huge and significant pool of strategies that are actually going to be more effective.
So there's more to it. There definitely is more to it. If we could make it really practical, like what maybe a day or a week in the life of someone managing fibromyalgia from a lifestyle perspective, what would that look like?
Yeah, it's always great to be practical like that and look at the actual day of someone because we can have fancy ideas, but it's got to work for someone. So, Zena, I think firstly, one of the things to really work on with someone with fibromyalgia is the stability and predictability of their day. So we've already been talking about how it's important to make these systems in the person's body feel safe again. And we know that the systems in our body constantly strive for what we call homeostasis,
Hmm.
right? So for those who listening who maybe not sure what homeostasis is, it's this idea that our body wants stable, dynamic balance between everything going on inside it. So when one system's going a bit too strong, it balances out with another system. And we want to kind of just have a bit more stability and predictability. So we want to help support that. So for me, it starts with looking at the anchors of meal times, the anchors of the sleep-wake cycle of the person. This is where sleep hygiene comes in. So, how predictable and stable is someone's day? Are they skipping meals? Are they eating meals at different times every day? Do they wake up 2 hours later one day and then earlier the next, go to bed really late, then early? We're just looking at chaos, okay? And we want to start with some stability and predictability because then the systems in the body are going to start to be able to predict what's coming and manage their response more. So that's really the background stuff. Okay. In the foreground of working with someone to actually teach them, equip them with strategies, there's three kind of big clusters of things. Well, yeah, let me say three and then I'll add lifestyle stuff. But the three big clusters of things are, as I said, education, so understanding not just fibromyalgia, but your fibromyalgia
Mm.
and what makes your fibromyalgia better or worse. Secondly, physical activity is essential.
Mm.
So where health coaches come in, I mean, that's already a lifestyle issue, isn't it? But
Mm.
we need to promote more physical activity for people living with fibromyalgia, but in a graded way.
Mm.
So what we often see is again two ends of a spectrum. We've got people who hate exercise. You just say the word and they're like shut down.
Yeah.
And so they're very nervous of this idea of physical activity, and it's just finding out what will be fun and convenient and doable for you and increasing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we've got people who are pushing hard. They like to do more and they push themselves too hard. They do too much too soon.
Mm.
So we talk about strategic use of physical activity. That's the second main thing. The third main thing that we can do for people is the stress management techniques. Um, when it comes to chronic pain, mindfulness-based interventions, these play a key role. Other relaxation techniques. I think these are familiar for health coaches
Mm.
and anyone working in chronic pain. And then I'm just going to throw in the sleep along with the other lifestyle things. So I know this is an area that health coaches particularly have knowledge and experience with. So that's again that background support for someone with fibromyalgia. We want a healthy, mostly Mediterranean diet, so low inflammatory diet. Um, we want good sleep, so we're supporting good sleep with good sleep hygiene. We want hydration, sunshine. Those are some of the basics.
Mm.
So I don't know. Yeah, I hope that gives a picture. So what we're saying is get the daily routine stable and predictable, and then begin to introduce into that person's daily life the doable daily habits of physical activity, stress management, sleep, so on, that are going to speak safety to these multiple systems.
And what have you seen in your practice? What could the results be if someone is able to do this?
Well, that's the hopeful thing here is that when we understand that it's mostly about changes that we want to sort of target and start to reverse to some extent, then we apply these techniques and in the fibromyalgia support group that I have been facilitating for about 10 years now, we do have members who live many months symptom free.
Mm,
Some of them have lived years symptom free.
sure.
And then I think, Zena, what happens is that when people do have a flare up after months of being quite well, being quite symptom free, they're quite discouraged and it's disheartening and like, what have I done wrong?
Mm,
Um, but actually, again, if we go back to understanding that the systems of someone with fibromyalgia are doing what they were meant to do. They're arousing and responding, and then they should reset. A flare up is a response, which then, if that person's got a good flare up plan, if they know what to do, they can cut that flare up shorter.
mm,
They can make it less intense. They can continue to function through it to some extent, and move on and resume their lives. So I have seen people achieve symptom-free living.
wow.
What I want to just throw in here, though, is that actually, if being symptom-free is our main goal, we are probably going to hit our heads against a wall a lot.
Yeah. Mm,
Actually, what we want to do is focus on that person's life, their functioning, what is important to them, what do they want to be able to do. And by doing that, we'll find that the symptoms actually do start to become more manageable and reduce
mm.
because we're not necessarily targeting them so directly. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I think that adds more stress if you're thinking about I need to be symptom free and that doesn't create a safe environment for them. So yeah, it's kind of
Yeah,
productive.
yeah. Because if failure is, if it feels like it's failure to have symptoms,
Mm,
um, I think it's going to be discouraging when maybe your symptoms settle but remain at a lower level for a long time, or they go away and then they come back with a vengeance, and so it's going to
mm,
be failure.
exactly.
But that is not success with fibromyalgia. Success with fibromyalgia is someone feeling more in control of their lives and their health again, someone being able to do what is most important and meaningful to them in
Mm.
whatever life roles they have. That's really that's what we're aiming for.
Mm. And we really are looking at the whole person. It's not just one area of their
Definitely.
life. It's looking at the bigger picture. But if
Yes.
let's say someone's listening and now they know, okay, I need to incorporate more structure, stability, predictability into my life, maybe understand what fibromyalgia is, incorporate some movement and um, low inflammatory foods, mindfulness, sleep, all of those things. Do you
Sounds like a
find
lot, hey?
it's a lot.
Okay.
If you've checked
It's
all
a
of those
lot.
things off, yeah.
It's a lot, but that's why why people need support from people like health coaches and practitioners, right?
Yeah, but with that said, do you feel
Yeah.
just knowing that someone, you've got fibromyalgia and I know I should be doing these things, do you think that is usually enough to support them? Or are you saying they need people like health coaches to
Yes.
help them? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. I think knowing what to do is only part of the solution. It's about how you do it.
mm,
So it's about how you do it and then who's around you, yes, to
mm,
support you in doing it. So I have found through my own experience of working with people with fibromyalgia that many times people with fibromyalgia have done their own research. By the time they see me, they've seen many other practitioners. So they come and they've got many of the pieces of this puzzle. And it's like they dump that in front of me and say, okay, I know what I should be doing, but I just don't know how to put it together.
yeah.
No one has said this is what the puzzle looks like. This is the picture we're aiming for, and actually put the pieces together in that daily life that we were just talking about. So
Mm,
I think how is important, and who's going to help you do that. So that's where who is important. And I think someone living with a chronic and complex pain condition like fibromyalgia, building those trusting long-term relationships with a health coach, a practitioner of some kind, a professional, whoever that person is, in many ways, who that person is can be more important than what they're doing.
Mm.
Um, for example, if you are seeing a specialist, but that specialist has no current up to date understanding of fibromyalgia and you don't trust them and you
Mm.
feel dismissed by them,
Mm.
you're not going to feel supported and you might struggle to successfully implement strategies.
Mm. Mm.
And so, yes, I'm glad you're bringing this up. It's not just what, it's
Mm.
how
Mm.
and it's who. Who can you trust? Who can you build long term with? Because you need someone you can walk with over a long time.
Mm.
Those are almost more important than the what.
Yeah. And I guess the mindset of the
Yes,
patient or the person with fibromyalgia, the way they look at their condition and whether it's possible to do something about it is also very important. So
yes,
what is
yes.
what is that maybe the mindset that we as health coaches can help cultivate that you've seen really makes a difference?
Yeah, so although we say, look, this is not all in your head, we
Mm.
know that mindset matters. Mindset can set the tone for that person's health, and mindset can direct how the body responds and behavior. So, coming back to what I was saying earlier about the sort of a spectrum of people's responses to things, the way people approach fibromyalgia can also vary along a continuum, I should say. We have, on one hand, people who might adopt quite a passive approach to their fibromyalgia. In other words, they they need things to be done to them and for them. They don't see themselves as very empowered.
Mm.
Um, they might use more medication. They might use more passive input. All right, and that's associated with a lot of sort of low mood, depression, focused on the past. But then just as challenging as the people on the other side of that continuum who are people who might even say I'm a fibro warrior. We hear this language.
Yeah.
People who are pushing hard, like I said earlier, and for them it's I'm not going to let this defeat me. um, they're very focused on the future and they're quite anxious, and they tend to be doing too much too soon. Now, neither of those extremes is actually helpful for fibromyalgia. What we want is somewhere in the middle where someone is saying, this is where I'm at. I accept that I am going through some very challenging things right now. I acknowledge and notice the symptoms. I notice what my body's doing, but I don't just surrender to that. Neither do I just ignore it and push through it.
Mm.
I commit to taking some kind of action that will move me forward to
Yes.
better health, to more meaningful life, and so on. So I call that proactive acceptance. That's sort of the middle ground.
Mm.
Not passive, not pushing,
Mm.
but proactive acceptance. And so I think as health coaches and practitioners, we can foster that mindset by constantly giving choices to somebody.
Mm.
What do you want to do? Um, we can do this and this and this. What feels most important to you right now? What would you like to do?
Mm.
How much can you do? Okay. If the person tends to underestimate what they can do because they're used to being more passive, we can encourage more.
Mm.
If they tend to push hard, do too much, we can kind of encourage restraint. So the practitioner or the health coach is knowing where someone's at and trying to bring them gradually to that middle place of proactive acceptance.
And the practitioner plays a really important role there from an objective view to try to find that balance, that
Yeah.
basically the homeostasis for the client, for their body to come back in balance. And what exactly
Yeah.
is it that they need, moving from the extremes um,
Yes.
back to that
And
sweet spot.
even as I listen to you, Zena, I'm listening to you, and you have a sort of a calm presence, the way you speak. I can imagine you as a coach and how you would be with people in a session, and that's what we're talking about here is we need to model that. We ourselves need to be practicing this kind of proactive acceptance. We need to be our whole demeanor, our body language, our voice being that safe, sort of regulating presence.
Yeah.
So it's not just what we say and what we encourage someone else to do, but ourselves as a person present with that person
Yes.
need to model and project that. Yeah,
Mm. And we often say that to our students as well, how important it is to find something that helps you to regulate and to show up grounded so you can hold that space for your client. No matter
yes,
what happens, no matter where the conversation goes, so you can be that container, that safe container for them, which is very.
yeah, yeah. Because if I can say this, Zena, sorry, you know, with my experience with people with fibromyalgia, they're very often high empathy, sensitive people
Mm,
who pick up on a lot of things, and they are more likely than other people to quickly pick up on our anxiety, our emotions, and our regulation than maybe people with other conditions. And so they're even more sensitive to that than maybe others. Yeah.
okay, so it's even, yeah, even more important maybe in this context. So if people want to find out more, they maybe want to, I don't know if it's still an option to join the support group. What are the options available to them? How can they reach you? How can they find out more?
Right, right. Well, so obviously I'm in South Africa. And so the in-person fibromyalgia support group that I facilitate is in my neighborhood, and so it reaches a certain group of people here. I am planning on starting an online fibromyalgia support group as well to reach more people.
Mm.
I do want to clarify that Fibro Hub, which was our online community that we started and launched earlier this year, has unfortunately had to close.
Okay.
So we haven't been able to continue. However, on my own website, which is about to undergo a refresh, there will be some fibromyalgia resources for people. And then my own book,
Mm.
Your Pain Playbook, which is written for people, anyone with chronic pain, but particularly those with the kind of pain that we see in fibromyalgia. This is a 6-week plan written as daily readings and reflections and practical exercises
Mm.
that anyone with chronic pain can work through on their own or with the support of a health coach and a practitioner. And that's available on any Amazon marketplace across the world or from me directly if you're in South Africa.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, and if there is one thing, so you've shared quite a few things with us today, but if there is one thing that you would want to leave our listeners with today, what would that be?
So I think what I want to say probably fits in well with health coaches. So it's not necessarily new, but I want to emphasize it, and that is that we are living in a world of wellness influencers with millions of followers, with not necessarily the expertise to match that influence, but also where the focus today is very much on, these wellness hacks,
Mm.
sexy sounding hacks for your health. And I want to just say again that it's the boring daily things we do that are going to make the most difference when done consistently. So rather than sexy sounding hacks, sustainable habits are
Yeah,
going to support our well-being and health more effectively. And that's why I do think health coaches can play a massive helpful role for people with fibromyalgia in just establishing and sustaining those kinds of habits.
Yeah, beautiful. So it's once again bringing in that structure, the predictability in itself. That's going to be so beneficial, but doing those things consistently every day, finding your why behind it, and maybe even feeling motivated and excited, so it doesn't have to feel boring. Might be the
I
key.
say boring because it doesn't sound as sexy as some of the
No, I
hacks
know.
people come up with, right?
I know.
Um, but yes, those are essential.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Helen. I think it's very important work that you're doing. So thank you for
Thank you.
clarifying some of the misconceptions of fibromyalgia and sharing what is possible for people to do.
Mm.
And even though
Mm.
it sounds like a complex picture, if we take that glass half full approach, thinking about, that just means that there's a lot that we can do. There's many different angles that we can take,
Yes,
showing us that it's absolutely manageable with the right support.
that's it.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time today, and a huge thank you to our listeners as well.
Thank you, Zena, and thank you to everyone listening.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please feel free to share it with friends or family who might find it inspiring. And if you'd like more insights like this sent directly to your inbox, make sure to sign up for our fortnightly HCA Talks Health newsletter. We've popped the link in the show notes. See you next time.